embed code.
Matt, you don't have like a access to a VPN or anything, do you?
Not one that gets me anywhere other than 20 minutes away.
Okay.
I have a VPN to my work, but
okay.
Okay, pop out the chat. Are you guys having like inclement weather over there or something?
No.
Okay. This is very odd. Maybe people are just streaming a lot.
I mean, I can guarantee he has a very bad case of Ohio.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Then maybe it'll be fine.
All right. Well, let's continue on and see how it goes.
Jinxed it. All right, we are still recording. I'm going to make a sound. And that should be visible on the autograph. We are on what's topic? We're on the bend test, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
All right, we ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, just get rid of this. All right, so some of you guys may recall about a year or so ago, there was some folks on YouTube who were lighting fires to their Nexus 6Ps and bending them and causing all kinds of havoc. Well, they're at it again this year, this time, of course, with the new Pixel phones. And apparently they are scoring much better this year. Completely unbendable, not quite, but pretty darn close, as it would seem. So that's good news.
Yeah, it does seem like it's stronger this year. I believe, did iFixit say that there's a magnesium mid-frame on the phone?
I believe
there's some kind of strange alloy.
Yeah, I mean it's a very sturdy device this year. I think iFixit said it was less repairable than an iPhone or something because of the way the internal structure is.
Well, I mean, iPhones, apart from the screen being destroyed every time you repair one, iPhones are pretty repairable, generally speaking, because there are so many screws and not quite as much glue. iPads, not so much.
Yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, the big issue last year was that the 6P, because it was so thin and tall, like it was possible to just grip it and like bend it in half. If you held it like in the right spot and put enough pressure, you could get it to sort of fold over. And so obviously people freaked out because that's what they do. And then this year it was the Pixel phones were not nearly as easy to break. So I mean, this is based on this one guy who does this, who buys phones and destroys them for our amusement. So good on him.
I mean, it makes sense. Also,
Our horror.
The design of the frame is such that you've got a lot of material.
Yeah, like it's got the sort of the rolled edges instead of just the like the flat back and then the angled sides. So yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be naturally a much stronger shape. And then I mean, it just and then there's like the mid frame or whatever in there, and it's, I don't know. I guess that's why it costs more money.
I would definitely say that the Pixels feel very brickish. They feel quite sturdy, if that's your thing. But yeah, so they survive bending better now.
They survive bending. Now, a little bit of bad news. Pixel, obviously, Google has been dealing with some complaints about lens flares on the super fantastic Pixel cameras. They're aware of the issue and looking to algorithmically fix it. Or you could fix lens flare with an algorithm. If there's anybody who can fix something with an algorithm, I would believe it would be Google.
Yeah. So I mean, lens flare is a thing that happens with every camera. Like if you point it at a bright light, you'll get lens flare no matter what other properties the camera has. Specifically with the Pixel, people are talking about this halo effect that you get at the edges of the frame. So if you have like a bright light source, like anywhere in the frame, like if you look at the edge, you'll just sort of see like this crescent shape of white or purple light. It's pretty bright, but very like indistinct. It kind of like looks hazy. I went through a bunch of the photos that I took with my Pixels after we heard about this. I found I saw it in a couple of them, but it's not consistent. But if you know it's possible, it's pretty easy to make it happen. You just sort of point the phone at something bright and sort of tilt it a little bit until you get the exposure compensation to just sort of lock into this place where it'll produce that effect. And so Google says that it's possible to fix this by updating the camera's algorithm to mathematically describe this effect, and then they would use HDR plus to just remove it from the final photo, which sounds like magic. It would be very cool if they did that. Supposedly this will happen in a future update.
I would say that it seems to be more common for some people than others. So maybe there's some kind of aberration in the construction of the lenses, which wouldn't be terribly surprising.
Yeah, Google said that, take it with a grain of salt, I guess. They said that every Pixel will do this in the same way, but they might just be saying that because they don't want a bunch of people who see this one time to try to swap out their phone.
Yeah, I mean, I can force it to appear on mine, but I've never had it appear in a photo where things that were normal were going on.
Yeah, I found it to be pretty rare. I suppose if you take like a bunch of photos in like the same lighting, like if you're out someplace and just happens to be in a spot where this will show up a lot, then you might say, hey, this is a really common thing because look, I have 20 photos that do this, but they were all taken in the same lighting conditions. So that might not happen if you've been taking the photo an hour later.
Yeah.
So what about what about video? My understanding is the lens flares are happening in video as well. The algorithm approach seems like it'd be a little bit more problematic there.
I mean, in video, you wouldn't be holding the camera still enough for this to happen for more than like a second.
Yeah.
It's a pretty angle-specific effect. And like I said, it does seem to affect some people worse than others. The only way I can reproduce it is if I sit in my office with all the lights off and then turn on the computer monitor and then point it slightly off from the monitor, where the monitor's at the right edge of the viewfinder, but not actually in frame. I can get it to appear then. I haven't gotten it to appear in direct sunlight or anything like that. The only other time I got it was when I was taking a picture and there's a bright street lamp overhead. And I guess it just caught it at the right angle. This is sort of like, this just reminds me of when people were screaming about Purplegate with the iPhones. Was it the 6 or 6S? Purplegate.
Probably the 6 when they changed the design.
Yeah, so I think this, you're always going to have these kinds of lens flare situations at varying degrees when you're switching, when essentially they're cramming so many tiny components into such a small space. It's hard to effectively get rid of every single refractive incident. So it's, I would say it seems to affect some units more than others. I would say if it's in like a lot of your shots, yeah, maybe it's time to get a return from Google. If if it was in a lot of my shots, I'd probably just return the phone. But as it is on mine, I don't have the problem with anything nearing frequency that would necessitate even complain about it.
And like the fact that like this is the principal complaint about the camera is pretty telling, that there's not any bigger deal there's nothing else that's upsetting people really. It's this, and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I mean, and to go, further with this, I had lens flare issues with the HTC 10 that I talked about in my review that were very prevalent with ultra bright light sources off frame. That were more serious than those that you got with the Galaxy S7. So I think that the Google one's just more noticed. People who buy these phones are looking for something to nitpick. I wouldn't say it's a non-issue so much as, well, it's an issue that hopefully can be addressed, and I don't think is so widespread. I mean, most of the complaining I see about this is on Reddit. It's not on the Google product forums. If normal people were super concerned, that's when it ends up on the Google product forums. That's when you can tell people are pissed.
Yeah. Though, you got to give a little bit of possible credence. Like you said, it's got to be individual units are probably really bad, because from everything we heard, the Pixels were at least a little bit rushed to market. And thing almost always ends up getting kind of the shaft, and it could have been the lens manufacturing. That would be really, really common.
Well, supposedly Google had a hand in designing some of the lenses for these phones.
Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would be more likely to suspect that there's a variance in manufacturing and that some units, probably minority, are more affected than others. I will say that nobody who reviewed the phone ever commented on the halo effect. It's only now that we're really hearing about it. And it does not seem to be in massive numbers. Some people do seem to be more affected than others.
Great. So we got a lot of feature spotlights for Android 7.1 this week. So we're just gonna kind of run through some of them real quick. There's a whole list, guys, if you want to just grab one and run with it. Starting off with, apparently we have voice commands in the camera app, so you can use your voice to create lens flares. Apparently,
well, it's in Assistant, right? You can tell Assistant to take a photo or a selfie, and it will do that.
Great.
And it's pretty neat, I guess. I mean, I can see the selfie thing being useful because taking a selfie is kind of awkward sometimes. But I mean, taking a photo, I feel like that's you can just use your hand for that.
And so we've also got the Android is upgrading optimization step now happens in the background, which is very cool. Means you can actually use your phone while apps are optimizing.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, that
seems to make a lot of sense. That seems to make a lot of sense with the silent upgrades.
Yeah, and that's it's a lot. I think, and that step is just generally a lot faster now because of the different compiler that they're using now.
Unless you're Artem, in which case it's probably still pretty slow. But, this is for him.
Well, look, he's got 300 apps installed, so that's just the way it is. Let's see. GIFs from the keyboard. I think we've already talked about that, have we? I
think we did. Yeah.
At any rate, you can put their GIFs accessible in the Google keyboard now in certain apps. So that's a thing. Device administrator apps can be uninstalled easily, which is it's nice if you ever mess around with those, because previously you just couldn't uninstall them, and it wasn't entirely apparent why to people who weren't familiar with how they work. You would actually go in and disable administrator access, and then you could uninstall them. Now the Play Store will just link you to the right place and tell you what you need to do. Yeah, that's definitely helpful. I mean, for people who don't know what they're doing, that essentially made them impossible to uninstall. Yeah, I've had people ask me why they had this app. They thought it was like malware because they couldn't uninstall it, and it's like, oh no, you just you turned it on for administrator sometime in the distant past and forgot about it. Yeah. So the phone app. Oh no.
Up on an APK mirror weekly. There's always somebody installing, especially Play services, and then it's a wrong version.
Yeah. So the phone app got a significant update that automatically switches you to do not disturb while you're on a call, which makes a lot of sense actually. Yes. Except for incoming calls. I mean, you still get those the call waiting thing and whatever if you have that. There's a new call notification, which basically takes the more abstract text-only thing and makes it really obviously buttons on the left and right for dismiss and answer. And there are a few other little features in there as well. Oh, and actually, this is part of that probably. Verizon Visual Voicemail. Voicemail works in the phone app now. If you have Verizon Visual Voicemail, which is a premium Verizon feature. Yeah, I think the basic version is just with everybody, you get it automatically. But then if you want the transcription, the transcriptions, it's like $3. Okay, yeah. Right. Yeah. Fancy. Yeah. Let's see.
New emojis, so yay for that.
Yeah, that's fun. The camera doesn't freeze when you rotate it. Cool. System UI tuner.
There's new emojis. I mean, hundreds of new emojis.
Yeah, there are hundreds of
them. So for professions and gender equality and skin colors and
This is
everything.
the long press thing, right? Where you can get different versions of
Yes.
everything. Yeah, so they're not technically entirely new emojis. There's new versions of most of these emojis that
Yeah.
you knew from before. Oh, you know what we should mention? It's not technically a 7.1 feature, but if this then that added support for Google Assistant, and it is pretty cool. I don't think we have it on the roundup anyplace, but has anybody else tried this? I've been playing with it. It's actually pretty impressive.
No.
So you can create custom voice commands, like anything you want to say to Assistant, and then have it linked to some other thing in if this then that. It's kind of what I've wished that Google's voice stuff would do before, that you could just make a custom phrase and have it do stuff. And I mean, you're limited to the if this then that channels, but that's still pretty cool. Especially if you have a lot of things that have channels in that service.
Yeah, I don't use if, but I can see how this would be useful, because I mean the custom, like, because you can give it any phrase and then that's fun.
Yes, I set up a thing with my OnHub to automatically prioritize a device when I say stuff, and that's cool. I don't know how much I'll use it. It's this, I have this thing with IFT that I always think it sounds like a thing that I'm going to use, and I always try to make myself use it, and then I usually just stop after a few weeks. Maybe this time with Assistant, maybe this will be the time. But I mean, it is really cool.
I feel like if you genuinely have a lot of smart home stuff, if this and that can do a lot of cool stuff. But if you don't, I'm less. I never got into using it as like a way to kind of curate your digital habits and everything, and I never really appealed to me. But if you're in the smart home, this makes Google Assistant, once Google Home comes out, that'll be compelling, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, to me, the problem
who
with
are in the smart home.
If just it needs a little bit more like ability to craft your rules. All too often it's just you have your trigger and you have the response, and you might have one or two parameters to it, and that's not enough. Like, you need to be able to do even like some basic sort of programmery stuff and make decisions with it.
That's Tasker, I guess, is what you described.
Yeah, it's funny.
Pretty much.
But
except Tasker's
if this then that is a lot easier to tie in with other services than Tasker.
Oh, completely.
Easier.
Yeah, that's kind of I've always assumed what makes if so popular is the number of channels and everything.
Apparently, when they added the OnHub integration, Google went out of its way to say, by the way, the company's name is pronounced IFT, which I think is stupid. But so there's that.
Man, I was not paying attention to that part of the presentation. I was zoned out, apparently.
But so at any rate, if you have, it only works on the Pixels and eventually Google Home. But it doesn't work with just the OK Google commands you have on other phones. So if you have a Pixel, you should. I just made my phone do stuff. That was great. If you have a Pixel, you should try it, because it is a very neat feature if you have any.
I would like to point out that you could use if this then that to do the things that Allo Assistant can do, but the Pixel Assistant can't. So you could have it give you the weather every morning, for example.
Yes.
Which the Pixel Assistant doesn't know how to do. So I guess there's that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. A little bit of carrier news that's Pixel related. So T-Mobile said, 2 days ago, I believe, that there was an announcement pending regarding the Google Pixel phones, and the announcement came and went, and apparently T-Mobile is not going to be selling the Pixel anytime soon. So
John Laguerre is approaching troll status now.
Right.
It is. He oversold this pretty heavily. And it's not that it's like bad, but I mean, they'll give you an account credit. Basically, it's what it amounts to. If you buy a Pixel, and is it only for new accounts, or can you upgrade an account too?
I don't know, actually.
But at
I
any
believe
rate,
it's for anybody.
so okay, but you have to sign up for T-Mobile One, which is the unlimited but not unlimited thing where they throttle your data, and you show them your receipt that shows you bought a Pixel, and they will give you $325 in account credits, and that's half the price of the base model Pixel. But those account credits are spread out over 2 years, so it's like whatever, 13 or 16 bucks a month that you save. Which, I mean, okay, that's fine if you're going to do it anyway. Then that's free money. I don't know that that's going to encourage that many people to do it, though.
Claypool in the comments says it does work with existing accounts.
Okay.
So that's good to know. So if you're already on T-Mobile and want to switch to a One plan and are looking for a reason, I guess.
Or if you're on T-Mobile and you just want a Pixel and you don't mind being on the throttled One thing, then hey.
Yeah, but I mean,
actually, the interesting thing is the link in the article where you can check your eligibility for the program. You actually have to supply a T-Mobile phone number and account number PIN, which makes it sound like this is only for existing customers. And if you're a new customer, you have to sign up for account first and then get it.
Okay,
They have a different process that they can do in store or something.
Well, I know you have to. They have like a site where you upload the receipt, sort of like when you upload the last bill from your old carrier for reimbursement.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure, like everything T-Mobile announces, it is a lot more convoluted than it sounds at first.
Yep. At least it's not a Visa gift card.
You know, I think John Legary, he's reaching the end of this sort of persona he's built for himself. I don't know how much longer he can be like, look at me, I'm the cool CEO in a pink shirt, when he is obviously so terribly, terribly uncomfortable at playing this character. He wishes he could just wear a business suit like all of his friends.
All right. So we have one last little entry in the rumor roundup before we move on to the hot sheet, and apparently is to absolutely no one. LG is ditching the Friends model for the upcoming G6 phone.
Who would have ever predicted this after they released 0 additional modules for the G5
and then reported a nearly $400 million quarterly operating loss for their mobile unit. Whoops.
I think by now, I think they a couple months ago we talked about the annual culling of the executives. I'm willing to bet that it was much more substantial this year than in previous years.
Yeah. The amount of loss there seems almost suspiciously high. Like they went, listen, we're going to write everything down.
Yeah,
everything
so
these people did.
That way, next quarter, we can say the new people have done so much better.
Yeah, that definitely is what it feels like to me. They're probably looking for everything they could write down this quarter, so the next quarter would look a lot better comparatively when the V20 comes out. Granted, the V20 feels very successory to the G5 apart from the module. So, I mean, the engineering technical story there is, these seem like very similar phones, but obviously LG wants it to look like, no, we've turned over a new leaf.
I mean, it seems like they changed the things about the V20 that they could change in the space of a couple months. So like the back is just aluminum without any crazy primer nonsense.
No, it does have the primer, I believe.
Does it? Are you sure?
I think they said that. Yeah.
I
think they said that in I remember reading that when they sent the preview units out, has the polymer coating or whatever.
It feels very different to me.
It feels colder.
There aren't antennas in it, are there?
The NFC coil, I believe, yes, is in the upper part near the camera module.
I feel like they did something different because it feels way different than.
I don't know. It might be thicker metal.
Yeah, but I mean, the build quality of the V20 in general, is just better than the G5.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the power button in the back doesn't rattle.
That's true. It doesn't. It did on the G5, and I've noticed it on.
There are no gaps because there's there
are actually. If you look between the bottom where the battery cover puts on, you can see light escaping through the edges. Where the real chin starts and where the battery, you can't really see it on the webcam here, but it's still just ever so slightly there on my AT&T version, just poking out.
I mean, mine doesn't have this.
Interesting. Mine definitely does. I think it has on the top left too, where there's a slight unevenness. I just think it's compromised design, but we'll have our review of the phone up next week. But no more modules. There could be more friends, but they won't be modular friends.
Yeah, I haven't checked. Does the 360-degree camera like work with the V20?
I'm sure it does. Yeah, because the Friends app is just an app.
So what about that little robot?
Oh yeah. Oh man, I really wish they would have sent that out to review, because I mean, that might have softened the blows a little bit.
That would have, you know what? That would have been great, because they sent that the hi-fi out to everybody, but that didn't even work in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they could have at least sent the robot.
Yep. The robot I would have been more interested in, but that sounded like mostly a Korea market gimmick item.
Yeah.
I'm actually probably going to get the G6 just because my Pontiac G6 died and I've been kind of missing it, so I need to replace it. So LG seems to be the only company willing to make another G6.
I mean, if you wait 2 more years, you can probably get a Moto G6.
That's true.
Yeah, good point. Maybe I'll go that route.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the hot sheet. So we have a new Galaxy Tab A 10.1 edition that was announced for the US for $350, and apparently they are using up the leftover S Pen stock they had from the Note 7 debacle in order to give this extra features and gimmicks that make you want it more, apparently.
Well, hey, if you're going to have a device with a pen, good for it.
Yeah, I mean, are the S Pens with the tablets? They're like physically different than the S Pens in phones, right? They're bigger, I would think. I don't know, actually. I haven't used a
I don't know. This one here, I'll pull up the picture.
I thought it looked more like a pen and less like.
It looks like it might be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
To be fair, the pen costs like nothing to make. The entire cost is in the digitizer.
Yeah, definitely. The pens on all of these things are super cheap. So, I mean, I guess.
So I would like to point out that there is definitely a pen design on here that makes it so you can't put the pen in backwards. So.
Oh yeah, it has the old style like hook instead of the little button deal.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
So yeah, truth be told, this is probably not Note 7 pen that they just stuck in a different device. That's a joke. Yeah. So if you buy one,
I mean, the specs of this tablet look, acceptable. It's like it's not as low end as the other Tab A devices have been.
I guess. I mean, but honestly, who's buying this thing? I don't really understand who that person is or why they're buying a tablet.
I don't know who's buying Samsung tablets in general, really. I mean,
I can understand who's buying the cheap ones, but this,
I don't know if this has cellular, but what odds that this is meant to sell through carrier stores?
Yeah, I mean, abroad, I'm sure there's a 3G, 4G version, but I don't know. I haven't heard about anybody announcing in the US on a carrier.
I feel like this is the first tablet we've even talked about for forever.
Because Android tablets are dead.
They seem to be.
It's $350. Apparently we didn't mention that. Maybe we did and I didn't hear it, but somebody asked how much it was. $350 for a 10.1-inch tablet with middle-of-the-road specifications.
There's a part of me that wonders. There's a part of me that wonders if this even has the full digitizer from the Note series, because they, first of all, don't call it a Note. They call it a Tab A, and even their Note tablets were called Notes in the past.
They were.
And it's $350, which seems to me like it's on the low end for what they would charge for a device that has that type of a digitizer in it. And also, it appears to be the same as the Galaxy Tab A 10.1 that was announced in Germany, which didn't come with an S Pen.
So I would guess that basically they're pulling an NVIDIA here, where the really fancy style stuff is essentially software emulated.
Right.
That would be very unusual.
It would be, but that would be very sensible at this price point. That would make a lot more sense, actually, because digitizers cost money dollars.
Yep.
Yeah, I would guess not, that it does not have a dedicated digitizer. We could be wrong. But,
Well,
you know.
I'm gonna have a very controversial point that I'm gonna make. Ever since I switched over to the Pixel XL, I miss my S Pen.
I can
I'm just
count on,
kidding. I don't care.
I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times I used the stylus in the Note 7 when I had it.
See, here's the only use that I had for it is screenshotting. Like screenshotting with an S Pen was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that's really the only use for it. There's been like 4 times that I've tried to do screenshots on this thing. I'm like, how the hell do I do this? I don't even remember.
You can say, take a screenshot. You can, though. Like, it works.
But
do you
the
get a
easy crop.
screenshot that shows the assistant taking up the bottom half of your screen?
No.
I assume it closes Assistant
Yeah, it
first.
closes it up.
All right.
Otherwise,
Well, I
that
guess
would be
that'll work.
even Google would say, "Yeah, that's dumb."
But even still, I have to if I want to then crop that screenshot down, I have to open it in some other app and crop it manually. And
Yeah, I never.
The S
I
Pen
never used it
screenshotting
long
was very
enough
nice.
to do the cropping thing, but yeah, I agree. If you're in the habit of consistently cropping your screenshots, then yes,
I crop
Is
the
a-
hell out of my screenshots.
that is a sorely missed feature.
It is. I'll get used to it. I'll get
Now,
over
what
it.
you
The rest
could
of the
do
phone's
is,
fine.
if you were Google, you could make it such that as soon as you take a screenshot, it pops up, and then you drag your finger to do a crop. That would
be
actually not be a terrible idea.
I disagree. I would be very upset if they did that.
I wonder. No, maybe if you hold down on the touch screen and implement that, but that requires a lot of hands.
Well,
I
they
don't
put
know.
it. So they put it in. As soon as you take a screenshot, they put it in your notification bar. Couldn't there just be a quick action on the notification bar that's edit, and then it just opens up all that functionality?
That would make
Maybe.
the most
Yeah,
sense.
I'm going to have to go on a Vision Quest on this and
I
get back to everybody.
think we cracked it. I think the notification thing is what they should do.
I think that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you do your Vision Quest and let us know how it turns out.
Will do.
Yeah, they just give you share and delete for the screenshot notification options right now. Edit should
Delete's
be in
there
there.
now.
Although I believe Google would probably, adding a third option, Google's head would explode. Like, what?
Yeah.
Not a binary option on this action?
Well, then
Users
you just
can't
get rid of
handle that cognitive load.
So you just
Oh,
have
cognitive load.
share. So you just have share and edit because deleting it can just be an
Wait,
option
wait.
in the edit.
Wait, can you share it to an editing app?
You could, but that would be inconvenient.
I guess.
Um,
I mean, it's an extra
And-
tab.
that's open with instead of share, I think.
It's share on mine.
Well, I know, but
Oh.
opening in an edit app would be an open with action, which
Yeah,
Android treats different.
Cody's right.
Okay.
It would have. To
I
be,
do have a
I mean,
share with-
technically, you could make an app where the
Okay.
share action opens it like it's an edit,
Yeah.
probably. But who would
You
do
mean
that?
like Snapseed does right there?
Right, Matt, shut up. Okay, it's fine.
I think it's good that we've explored this in such detail.
Yes. All right, so we got other things to talk about, so let's do that. Xiaomi has got some devices that they want to sell you. Announced this week, the Mi Max, probably the most notable of them all. It's a 6.4-inch screen that has a 91.3 screen-to-body ratio. David is freaking out because he loves his bezels, and this phone has
I
virtually
do. I love my bezels.
This-
This phone has too few bezels.
I think this is actually where Google got all the bezels for the Pixel. They took the extra bezels from Xiaomi, and they just stuck them right on the Pixel.
They did. That's what
Excuse
happened.
me, sir. May I borrow your bezels?
But really, so the Mi Mix, sorry, it definitely it looks very nice in photos. It makes for a very good ad, I'm sure, but it looks like a phone from a sci-fi movie, and that is where it should remain, because I just bet that the palm rejection is not going to work well. You are going to drive yourself crazy trying to use this phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say this. The one thing I will say in defense of it is that probably the palm reduction can't be worse than it is on the Galaxy S7 Edge, which
Yes.
is truly obnoxious at times.
I mean, but there are like you can hold the S7 Edge in a way that you're not touching the screen. I don't know if that's even physically possible with this phone.
I don't know. I would just say that to me, the reachability thing, like Marquez Brownlee had a video about it. He's got really long fingers. He can't even reach the top of the phone. Like it's such an ergonomic issue at that point.
Yeah. This is a 6.4-inch screen.
I mean, it's massive. Tons of canvas. Great for watching videos. Probably pretty good for gaming. I mean, assuming you don't palm yourself into the screen.
You just cannot use this phone with one hand.
Yeah,
it's essentially
you can't use this phone without a case. That's just the reality.
Oh my god, I would be so paranoid.
I'm sorry, but that's how I have to use the S7 Edge. I have to have a case on it. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I think this is, everybody's saying this is the future of smartphones, and I think that to a limited extent, why not just have a really small top bezel and a small bottom bezel? Why do you have to eliminate the top one entirely? Why is that bugging people so much? Is it just, I don't get it. Like, do you have some OCD about top bezels? I don't understand it. Samsung is already doing a very good job of minimizing both the top and bottom bezels.
I think that, I don't like the look much either. I think the asymmetry is bizarre, but I guess I sort of get why they do it, because they want to show off like how narrow the bezels are. And if they can have 3 super narrow bezels, that's more visually interesting than 2 super narrow bezels.
I guess.
Because in all of the ads, they'll cut off the bottom third of the phone. And they'll say, look, there are no bezels on this phone except for the ones down here you can't see.
I said this to Liam a few days ago. I'm convinced that this is entirely one of those things where one day somebody started measuring bezels on a phone, and they were like, we can create a number out of this. We have a measurement. And after that, every company was like, all right, how can we optimize this? We must optimize bezel size. Someone had to take it too far.
And so Francois points out something that a lot of people have said. You get a 6.4-inch screen in what is effectively a 5.5-inch device footprint, except for the width, which is the single most important dimension on the phone. Width determines how hard it is to hold, period. If a phone is super wide, it's a pain in the ass to hold. Try holding a Nexus 6. Most people do not like doing that. Trust me, I used it for 2 years. I have long fingers, and the Nexus 6 is not comfortable. It is really, really wide. A 6.4-inch phone is stupidly wide, even with the very minimal bezels that are on that Xiaomi phone. It's going to be a handful in a bad way. I am not inherently opposed to shrinking bezels. I'm just not opposed to doing it for its own sake, which is what this feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if they made it smaller, it'd be more appealing, but obviously they didn't.
And the other phone they announced, the Mi Note 2, also does some weird bezel stuff, but it basically is a clone of the Note 7. So if you live in China and were interested in a Note 7, I guess you can just get the Mi Note 2 instead.
Yeah.
Although the screen is only 1080p, so it probably doesn't look as nice. But it's got a Snapdragon 821 and a lot of RAM and storage, and you can get a VR headset with it. But the VR headset does not work with the the Mi Mix.
No, of course it doesn't, because the PPI isn't high enough. And also it's an LCD, so it wouldn't look very good. Yeah. And also the screen, in order to make it not even crazier wide, it's a 17:9 ratio, which is weird. Which means that if you watch videos on it, they'll have black bars on the top and bottom. Or they'll have to be cropped in. So, good times.
Actually, wouldn't they have the black bars on the sides?
I'm talking in landscape. Oh, would it? I don't know. You might be right.
I think it would because it's longer. The landscape
you're right,
width
yeah.
is the extended side.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is just, I mean, that's just kind of weird. It's just like watching 480p video on a, I don't know. It's weird, but it's a thing.
I mean, everything Xiaomi does is at least a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would venture to say that the Mi Note 2 is not all that weird. It's just a blatant ripoff.
Oh my god. Yeah, it looks like a, what is it, the Huawei Mate 9 curved version, which looks like a Samsung Galaxy Note 7. But there's all these people who say that Xiaomi came up with the curved design before Samsung did, blah blah blah. Which in a limited sense is true. But this seems like Xiaomi trying to say, no, it's ours. We did it.
This is like HTC, like, no, we came up with antenna lines first, Apple. Like, it might kind of sort of be true, but I mean, come on.
Yeah. The Mi Note 2 is not that exciting. None of these phones are coming to America. None of them.
No, because they would definitely get sued out of the US if they tried to launch the Mi Note 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so somebody
That's
posted the dimensions of the Xiaomi Mi Mix. It is 1 millimeter narrower than a Nexus 6, which is to say it is still very, very large. Yeah. And that's too large for most people. I mean, if they made the phone smaller, then this wouldn't be such an issue. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and then there's Blackberry.
And then there's Blackberry.
Which doesn't actually make phones anymore, but they sell them. They're just having other people make them.
And they license rights to make phone keyboards if anyone was doing that or wanted to.
Yeah, so the DTEK60 is a thing, which is, I'm pretty sure, it's just another Alcatel device, right? It's the a version of the what was the one that just came out?
Idol 4S.
Somebody help.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
The Alcatel Idol 4S?
I think, but it's like, I think it's a version with like a better.
It's the Alcatel Idol 4S Pro, which isn't announced.
Yeah, it's that. But I mean, it seems like it's an okay phone. But here's the thing: power button on the top left again, I believe, which I am not okay with.
Yeah, it's a China thing. It's just because they're branded as TCLs in China, and so then they bring them to America and other markets, brand them as Alcatels. But all of the design stuff happens in China, and then so obviously TCL does these deals directly with BlackBerry, and that's how you end up with this phone.
Yeah. So I mean, BlackBerry is not giving up, but it seems like they're resigned to take a smaller role in the mobile marketplace than they had once hoped for.
Yeah, I guess. This is competitively priced, kind of. Like, it's closer. It's closer to what it needs to be. What was the Idol 4S priced at? Let me just go ahead and look.
I think it was 400. I think, and then, or maybe, so this one is 500. The 4S was it 400? Or am I completely?
Yeah, so it's a $400 phone. So the Alcatel Idol 4S is $400 with a Snapdragon 652. And so $100 more gets you the Snapdragon, is it 820 or 821? 820. And that's like a no-brainer of an upgrade. The 652 is totally mid-tier, and the 820 is about as good as it gets. So yeah, I feel like TCL just basically boned Alcatel's phone in America that they have here. It doesn't, like, if I was shopping Alcatel phones, I would buy the Blackberry DTEK60 because it's the best Alcatel phone and the best value for money of an Alcatel phone.
All right, David, you've used the BlackBerry software on a phone before. Can you tell me what's going on in this screenshot?
Oh, that screenshot's got all kinds of weirdness going on. I think that's when you hold down the home button.
Yeah,
You
you have the Google link, and then you have the hub link and the the messaging thing.
I mean, so aside from that, and aside from the BlackBerry pre-installed apps and some of the setting stuff in the menus, it's pretty much feels like stock Android. So BlackBerry's not like hateable in this regard. They do an okay job there, better than most, frankly.
Yeah.
As to when the DTEK60, I think the real kicker here is going to be, I would bet strongly that at the end of it all, that it comes down to TCL to get the firmware and drivers in order to update this to Android 7.0 and not BlackBerry. BlackBerry probably has a lot of control over the software, but I would suspect that TCL on the very low level is essentially going to be the limiting factor here. So I will be curious to see how quickly this phone gets updates to Android versions as opposed to mere security patches. BlackBerry's very big on security patches, but I will be curious to see if this gets fast Android updates, because Alcatel phones are notoriously slow to get OS updates.
All right, good deal. Last little bit from the hot sheet is LeEco, who apparently is doing some interesting things with the pricing models on their phone. Of course, they announced their phones, TVs, and a bunch of other stuff last week. David was in attendance, and the prices were very good prices. So now it's looking like maybe, just maybe, they were too good because they're limited prices.
Yeah. So somebody, one of the comments I've seen is, oh, well, of course it's going to be limited quantities because it's a sale, and obviously, well, yeah, would be nice to think if LeEco didn't go out of their way during the presentation to say these prices are good through November, and then didn't provide the asterisk of while supplies last. Yeah, it's not like, oh, if you place an order in November, you'll get the phone for this price no matter what.
Yeah, what they meant was like they're good through November, assuming people don't buy too many of them.
Yeah, exactly, which is bullshit. And that is such a bait and switch. It makes it like, I was trying to figure out, man, are they really going to recoup on their service fee $150 Snapdragon 652 phone? And it turns out, no, almost definitely not, because they're probably not going to sell that many of them. Now, I heard off the record that the way this could work is that when the first wave of units sells out, there will be a less good discount that then appears. And then there'll be that wave of sales. And then the discount will get less good, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until you reach the full retail price. So, yeah, I imagine they'll probably sell like 10 of those 4K TVs for $4,000, some ludicrously low number. Because, like, seriously, it was kind of fishy to me at the time, and once they said this, yeah, not cool. Matt is muted.
I am muted. That's why you can't hear me right now. All right, we're going to move on to product reviews. We've got 2 product reviews to hit this week. Starting off with the Xiaomi Mi Box, which is the super cheap 4K capable Android TV device.
It's also something that none of us have actually used. So.
Oh shoot! Did I throw one on here that nobody here used? Look at that.
That was a Michael.
All right, now it's time to move on to product reviews. So we've got one product review this week, and that is the Fossil Q well, I guess we do have 2, because we have the Fossil Q Marshall and the Fossil Q Wander.
Yeah, it was not worth doing individual reviews for each watch, because they are very similar, except for the external design. So yeah, these watches are not good. They're just not good. The last Fossil watch, the Q Founder, I mean, it wasn't great, but it had good points. With these ones, it's like, look at the review. I was hard pressed to come up with like good things about them. Like this one, the Marshall, I think looks nice. It looks like a conventional watch. It's reasonably comfortable. The Wander, I think, is not super good looking. The lugs just sort of pop out in like this strange way on the really smooth sides, and it does not look very nice in person. So really weird. Flat tire displays still, but no light sensor. Every watch that has had the flat tire, they've at least slapped an ambient light sensor in that bottom portion. The Fossil watch last year did that. They didn't do that this year. Weird. Also, the displays are very, very, very bad. They're dull, and the viewing angles are bad, and there's a lot of ghosting when you're using it. It just it feels like they really cheaped out on that part. I mean, I was interested to see these watches because they're the first I've had the chance to use with the Snapdragon 2100, which is supposed to be the big wearable focused ARM chip. And I don't know, it's kind of not a big deal. It doesn't feel much different, in daily use than a watch with a Snapdragon 400. The battery life is a little bit better than I guess I would have expected for the specs, but it's still just barely over a day. You're still gonna have to charge it every day if you intend to use it, all the way through the next day. And it's still just Android Wear. Like, there are plenty of problems with that, like we have talked about many times. And these are priced at $250, which, considering all of the hardware issues, is just way, way too much to pay. When you can get a Huawei watch or a Moto 360 V2 for substantially less right now.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it seems as though these are the only recently released Android Wear devices that are really coming out.
The only other one is the ZenWatch 3,
right?
I think, and I think that one also has a Snapdragon 2100. We don't have one of those to review yet, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are just like the hardware for these watches is just very mediocre. So I mean, they're not worth remotely what Fossil is charging. But even if they were good, I would have a hard time telling somebody they should spend $250 on any Android Wear watch right now, because we just don't know what's going to happen with Wear 2.0. I mean, for all we know, Google's going to come out next year and say, okay, no updates for any old watch except for the Huawei watch. You don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on a smartwatch that is of marginal utility right now and then not, be able to get the new software in a few months.
Yeah, and I think that leads us to our next story, in which smartwatch sales are doing absolutely terrible, which should come as a surprise to no one.
Yeah, smartwatches, like, they're just way too expensive, You could probably convince a lot of people that it might be kind of cool to have a smartwatch because it does like a few things well, and like they'd be fine charging every day if it didn't cost them $300.
Yeah, I just, so the numbers released by the IDC were, let's see here, a staggering 51.6% decline year over year for this quarter, which is to say they sold half as many watches this year during the last 3 months as they sold during those 3 months last year. And most of that was on the Apple Watch, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
The only company that grew year over year was Garmin, which not surprising because actually their smartwatch and fitness trackers have actually reviewed very well.
They have a niche.
They do. They have a niche, and they exploit it very well because people associate Garmin fitness and outdoors, and they trust the brand. And Garmin knows that they have an audience. Whereas with Android Wear and Apple Watch, the audience is supposed to be everybody. But I don't see smartwatches ever having an audience of everybody. And I think that's starting to show. And people can say, oh, well, Android Wear 2.0 is not out. The battery life still isn't good. There's new chipsets that need to come out.
I mean, it's not.
None of that is going to make a normal person buy a smartwatch. None of it.
But
I don't care.
Even if you have the magical new chipsets and battery tech, it's not going to radically change the experience. I mean, at best you'll only have to charge it every other day, maybe. I mean, these are still products for nerds. and
Yeah.
I don't know who the regular people are that would buy this.
Yeah.
It's like not for this price. I mean, I feel like Google should like, I mean, if they want to keep going with like the full Android Wear thing that runs apps and everything, like fine. But they should really start looking at maybe doing like a slimmed down version of Wear that runs on like a less powerful wearable that you could maybe use for a week without charging and does like basic stuff like notifications and like voice commands, and just like skip all the other stuff, because most of that stuff people don't care about.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen is with as far as improvements to smartwatches isn't, oh look, we've made it more useful for the normal person. It's, did you love smartwatch 1? You're going to love smartwatch 2 even more. It does even more smartwatchy things.
More apps. More
yes,
more everything.
And
more gestures.
Yes, and that's like, okay, you're improving the watch for the audience that already likes it. But that's not the audience that you're struggling with. It's the audience that's not sold on the concept. And that audience doesn't seem to be buying it anymore. Apple had their big chance with the original Apple Watch to say, listen, we did it right. This is a smartwatch the average person can own. And then they came out with the Apple Watch Series 2, which was basically, listen, we made the Apple Watch better, but basically the same. and so it feels like even Apple can't, because with the original iPhone, there was the moment of like, okay, the original iPhone had some serious compromises. Like it didn't even have apps. Like it was a 2G only. Yeah. And when the iPhone 3G came out, it's like, oh wait, the average person can like take advantage of this now. There's content. There's an ecosystem growing. There's, not, Stone Age internet speeds. Whereas with smartwatches, we've been here for like almost 3 years now, and it doesn't look like that moment's happening.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I keep thinking like every time one of these watches comes out, and it's like it's another thing where the experience is almost the same. It's like the battery dies in a day. It lags sometimes. I don't feel the need to take advantage of all the things it can do because a lot of the things it can do are really clunky. And I just think, you know what? If Pebble could make a watch that wasn't horrendously ugly, I would probably use it.
I thought the time round looked kind of cool in an offbeat way.
I mean, sure, if they could give some of their bezels to somebody else, like to Google, if they needed some more bezels for the Pixel 2, then I would consider that.
Xiaomi needs them.
Yeah, Xiaomi doesn't want them, but that phone that watch had too much bezel. That was the problem. And they sacrificed on the battery life. Look, smartwatches are a mess right now.
I'm fairly sure that the screen in the smartwatch or the Pebble Round and the regular Pebble Time were the same screen, and the bezel was that big.
It's hiding the corners.
I believe they did prove that actually. That it's a square display with like edges cut off. I think that was said.
You know what? Like if Google could like make an Android, like a lighter weight Android powered watch that was basically, the Pebble, I think that would probably be a better device.
I think so too. I think Google's trying too hard. I think Google really, really wants smartwatches to be these ultra powerful tools. And I don't think the case is there that we need this ultra powerful thing on our wrist. I think that smartwatches should try to do what smartwatches do best, which is to provide very basic information, but also act as information trackers. Look, notifications, like media, voice control, and fitness stuff, I think is all they really should be doing. I don't think you need a full color touchscreen to accomplish that. It doesn't seem.
I mean, certainly you don't. I mean, you certainly do not need a 480 by 480 AMOLED display to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just anytime I've ever run an app on the watch, it's been like, okay, no, that's cool, but I could probably just do this on my phone faster because the phone is fast and this watch is slow as balls.
Okay, so take away apps from the discussion for just a second. And you just asked a great question. Do you need like a high resolution touchscreen display for this? Because, okay, take away color, take away high res display. It's going to be ugly. You can't have a good looking watch face on this thing if it doesn't have that. And as far as the touchscreen, do you want to go back to buttons? They tried that with Pebble. granted, there are people that like Pebble. They're wrong, but that's a thing.
No, you know what? I will grant you
Go back to
probably
buttons.
the hardware aspect of the watches we have now that makes the most sense is having a color touchscreen, just because you can make it pretty, you can make it look more like a real watch. But I don't think that's necessary for a smartwatch to work.
It's not necessary, but they already have that.
I mean, if they,
Google's
if they
trying
can,
to do the thing that.
right, but I mean, if that's the difference between like having a device that dies after 26 hours and one that lasts 5 to 7 days, I don't know. Maybe that's a sacrifice that needs to happen.
Yeah, I'll be honest. My favorite wearable to date that's relatively high concept is still Samsung's Gear Fit 2, which lasts 3 days easily. Granted, there are no apps for it, basically. I mean, they're like a handful, and you have to develop different apps for the Gear Fit than you do for Gear S.
It has the skinny little...
Yeah, because the interface is completely, let's say, fucked. And so it's... but it's very good at what it does. It's designed to track activity. It acts as a clock. It's very comfortable because it's very small and narrow, and it's a whole $150. I think that sounds right. Maybe it was 180 this time. But either way, it's, to me, we should be trying to get the most possible out of the least when we are talking about wearables. Whereas the approach with devices like the Huawei watch and probably the upcoming Google Super LTE watch is going to be cram more features. And I just don't buy into that. I don't think that's a good approach.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that there are similar discussions to what we're having now happening at Google, but hopefully much smarter people are having them who can actually change what Google's doing.
Being able to change what Google's doing is definitely the key there. I don't know. I just, other than the fact that the watches also run apps, I don't really see the difference there. Probably the only real difference is Samsung is optimizing theirs better.
Well, I mean, but if you take apps out of the equation, you're basically eliminating a lot of the hardware overhead. If you don't need to run apps on the watch, it can be a much more low-power design.
Yeah, definitely. But again, the Gear Live or whatever it is, it's able to do it, and it's just bringing better battery life, which I don't know. Maybe I'm different, but I as long as I'm getting about 36 hours, I don't actually care. Anything over that's just a bonus.
You know, that was always.
I usually get about 48 on my Huawei watch.
So do I.
I could usually pull like 40 on the Huawei watch.
Yeah, and the Zen Watch 2, I have never even seen that thing get below after like 2 days. That thing's got stupid good battery life for some reason.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's.
So I think that's going to do it for our show this week, guys. We did have some screens. I apologize. We ran a little bit long, so those had to hit the showroom floor.
Maybe do those next week. Something.
Yes. Something like that. We'll get to screens at some point in time. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to send to us, you can email us at podcast@androidpolice.com. You can also give us a call at 530-HELLO-AP. That is 530-435-5627. You can also find us on Twitter at Android Police and on Google Plus and Facebook. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast.